Hello and welcome back to Rams Talk Podcast. And we're here today after another Derby County defeat. Defeat at home to Leicester. After probably the worst first half we could have had, 3-0 down at half time. Yes, the second half was a little bit better, but it was pretty dire, that first 45 minutes. But there are lots of things to talk about, lots of ways that John Hughes has changed the team and didn't change the team throughout that we're going to analyse today, and lots of individual players that we want to have a look at as well. So, joining me today for all the chat, lots of fun chat coming. Firstly, we've got Chris Hubbard. How you doing, Chris?
Well, I've had better weekends. I have to confess, after the cringe worthiness of, goodness me, I didn't want to talk about it, but the World Cup draw on Friday night, which was 2 hours of my life I won't get back. And then, of course, yesterday, well, I'm sure we're going to get into all the dirty details of that in a minute. And then today, another grassroots football defeat for the under-13s in icy, sleety rain. So I'm almost glad to go back to work, but looking forward to getting into it, old boy.
Great stuff. Yeah, Jamie Page picking up the FIFA Peace Prize, which was a really nice touch of Infantino on Friday during the World Cup draw. And we've also got Nick Drewett. How you doing, pal?
Well, I have spent my weekend watching men dressed in white put in pathetic performances and lose very easily. If anyone else follows the Ashes, England are terrible, and Derby were terrible yesterday. The sycophantic party has to make Jake Barker a World Peace Medal for the start of this stream. But yeah, look, it is what it is. Let's try and keep level heads about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we've got lots to talk about today. Just having a look at the comments. It's not exactly positive at the minute, but, you know, there's quite a lot to talk about. My results today, Rich Greaves has asked, none. All the games are called off. It's this time of the year. No games anymore. And just before, to make sure I don't forget, I want to say a big hello to Barney from Mansfield as well. You know who you are, so thank you for your support all this time as well. So let's go straight into the game. And Derby, like I said, couldn't have started much worse. You know, the first couple of minutes actually were okay. You know, Derby got into the Leicester half quite a lot. I thought the atmosphere was a little bit weird. I thought our pre-match music was very, very flat. You know, I don't know quite why we were playing the music we were playing, but it was very flat. The atmosphere didn't seem great for what Leicester fans would describe as a local derby. Derby fans maybe less so. But then we decided to just do nothing and concede lots of goals. You look at that first goal. I've got a picture in front of me. Ben Brereton Diaz gives the ball away very, very cheaply. I mean, he just runs straight into the defender. And suddenly it's, a 4v3? They run through. Joe Ward doesn't track his man. He gets a free run across our back line and slots into the bottom corner. Chris, it wasn't the start we wanted, was it? And the defending left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, it did. I mean, you know, you're right. Those 8 minutes were fantastic. And I thought to start with, you know, I thought we're going to turn these over here. They came in, Leicester, with what, 3 defeats on the bounce. Conceded 3 against Southampton, 3 against Sheffield United, and they looked very, very ropey for the first 8 minutes. And then, bang, first attack, and you go. I mean, I do think we have to give them a little bit of credit for that first goal. It was actually very, very well worked goal, and you know they broke with speed. You're absolutely right. And Jordan James got the ball, who incidentally was absolutely outstanding for them in the centre of midfield. I mean, we have to acknowledge that him and De Cordova-Reid, absolutely, you know, the best players on the park, in my opinion. He plays a lovely reverse pass, and it takes Sanderson out of the picture and Clark out of the picture, and then all of a sudden, you're right, they get a run on Langas and Ward, tons of space, nice finish. You know, so you have to tip your hat. That's proper, good old-fashioned breakaway football. But yeah, we were caught cold, and it just seems to be that, you know, 3 or 4 short, sharp passes, and you know the opposition gets from one end of the pitch to the other, and bang, it's in the net.
Well, that's it. And I mean, I watched it back just before we started recording, just looking at it. And I do have a screenshot in front of me of when Leicester sort of started that counter-attack. And you've got obviously the back three tracking back, but then you've got a Leicester player on the left wing, Leicester player carrying the ball on the right wing, and then 2 players in the middle. Somehow we've ended up in a position where we've lost the ball in the opponent's half, and within a second, they're in our half, and they've got a man advantage on us. Now, Nick, that's not ideal, is it? And, you know, you think in football, yes, you want to build from the back, you want to get players into the opposition's half, and you want to try and crowd them out and dominate in that final third. But how were Derby caught so short at the back in such a short amount of time?
I don't think there's a sensible answer for that. I mean, I've got a picture in front of me where you've got Brereton Diaz, Elder, Bobby Clark, and Ibu in a line. They look like they're queuing for
I think
something.
we've got the same picture.
It's absolutely appalling. Why are they all in a straight line? You probably won't remember this, Jake. Chris may, because it might be slightly more of my vintage. But in the top 5 worst performances I've ever seen at Pride Park was Leicester in '97, when they went 4-0 up as minutes and Emil Heskey scored a hat-trick. And this 8-minute period was thank you. And this 8-minute period was getting on for as bad as that. But it's a game to forget, a half to forget. I'm not really sure how they overrun us so badly. I'm not really sure why our players are positioned in the manner that they are. I think you can't really put massive fault on the centre-backs for the first goal. I'm sure we're going to go through the second and third where we can. But yeah, down that left-hand side was a particular, weakness in that period where they created the dominance and basically won the match in 8 minutes.
Yeah, and we mentioned there a couple of players not really following the runners. Joe Ward, you actually watch, and Sandra Langus gestures to Ward, follow him. I've got this guy, you follow that guy, and Ward follows him until he gets to the edge of the box and then just stops and lets him keep running. I don't know what he was thinking. He just let him run across him. And like you said, Chris, it's a great finish. It's really good football, but it was definitely stoppable from a Derby perspective. And speaking of stoppable, the second goal, not long afterwards, it's a Leicester corner. Ball comes over, and I mean, Brereton Diaz has had probably players and people on his back from across the whole fan base pretty much since he's signed, because his performances haven't been incredible. But he misses the ball completely at the near post. His job at the front is to head that ball away. You're the first man. You are the first man. That ball should not beat the first man. It's way too low, and he misses the ball. That seems to throw every player on the pitch, because I think everyone expected him to head that ball. It comes into the box, and I've got, again, a picture in front of me of when the ball strikes a combination of Ibu Adams and the Leicester player in the centre of the box, because Derby have got one player in the 6-yard box at that point, and that is Joe Ward himself. So you've got Joe Ward, who's probably 3-4 yards deeper than almost everyone else. Everyone else is in pretty much a bunch together. So every other Derby player, it cannons off the two of them. And Joe Ward isn't quick enough to react as the Leicester player nips in front of him and flicks it into the back of the net. Chris, we've seen recently we're conceding a lot of goals from set pieces. Obviously, Watford scored from a set piece. Mm-hmm. Borough scored 2 goals from a set piece. Obviously, that Whittaker goal coming from a short corner. It's not looking good, is it? And we've kind of always been good at set pieces on both ends, but at the moment we look really all over the place.
Yeah, we do. And this is what Eustace prides himself on, isn't it? I mean, he prides himself on organisation, hard work, bodies on the line, and stealing stuff from set pieces. I mean, this is our bread and butter, isn't it? I mean, we're never going to be the sort of side that's going to cut teams open like Leicester did to us on the first goal and the third goal. We're about defending as a unit, winning the ball in the air, and then trying to nick something from a set piece at the other end. And if that piece is going wrong, and guys that are 5'0" are scoring. I mean, this is what happened against Watford. Don't forget. I mean, the guy who scored was tiny. I forget who it was now. And then we do the same, Matt Targett against Borough. And then here, I mean, Oliver Skipp. I mean, what is Oliver Skipp even doing up there? I mean, he's not the most attacking of players, but fair play. He finds himself in the right position. I mean, to be fair, that ball could have gone anywhere. I mean, it could have gone anywhere, but yeah, Brereton Diaz didn't attack it. It comes off someone, and then he slashes it in from 3 or 4 yards. But yeah, I would expect Eustace would have been fuming with them at half time, and probably is giving them a jolly good roasting, in the dressing room, if I can come out with that phrase, because that is the bread and butter, and that's what Eustace teams are all about. So, we've got to sort that out pretty quickly. It's not down to a lack of height either. I mean, there's a lot of big blokes in that box. So it's just basics, absolute basics. Now I would expect them to be going through all the set piece routines, because we're going to need it on Wednesday, because Millwall are a big side and they're a physical side and they're third in the league, and we're going to absolutely need to get that back.
Yeah, we really will. And Nick, if you look at the comments, Rich Greaves saying the second goal was a shambles, and that's exactly what it was. When that ball drops, Derby have got players all over the place. But one thing to note is we're playing this hybrid system, which most teams do play, where, you have your best headers of the ball kind of on their own, not marking anyone, because their job is to attack the ball, and then the job of everyone else is to get in the way, right? But it seems like at the minute, a lot of the time, the players that are, there to attack the ball are just, the ball's going nowhere near them. And the players that are kind of, the smaller players that aren't really as used to getting in those situations are ending up in 1v1 situations like Joe Ward and Oliver Skipp. Oliver Skipp is probably one of the slowest players in the league. He's not quick, is he, with his feet? He's not a rapid player when it comes to movement. And yet he still manages to nip in front of Joe Ward and flick it into the back of the net. Why is it, do you think, that Derby are being so exposed at the moment in those situations?
Again, it's a tough one, because that back five is not completely dissimilar to the back five that essentially kept us up last season by keeping the clean sheets. You're missing Nat Phillips in there and Sanderson's in, and it's Ward for Wilson. But arguably, from what I've seen, despite his defensive frailties, Ward is a better header of the ball than Wilson. So is it a lack of cohesion in terms of them not knowing their jobs? Do they need to go man for man? Langas and Clark are two of the most sort of aggressive players in the league in terms of going for the ball, going for headers. So again, you're sort of at a bit of a loss as to how that scenario has arisen. As you and everybody else has pointed out, that goal stems from Brereton Diaz not clearing the first ball. If Joe Ward puts that corner in, we're all moaning that it's not beat the first man, because it wouldn't beat the first man if it was us playing against another team at that. So that's a tactical thing. Do you need to put somebody better, more confident on the front post to be clearing poor balls away? But yeah, it's pinged around, and a surprisingly 25-year-old Oliver Skipp.
Really?
How that man is 25 is beyond me, because that is some hair loss and a half, son. But
I can have that at my age, but at his age, you can't have that.
It's a good finish, but it is, as people have pointed out, a shambles. And Rich Greaves has just said we should have worked harder to get Nat Phillips in the summer. You are potentially on something there, Rich. But I would like to shout for Curtis Nelson to get back in from the start next week. I'm sure we'll come on to some of that stuff later. But I don't think we concede as many set piece goals with Curtis Nelson in the back three.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Nick, because I do agree to an extent. However, if you look where the balls have been dropping for the set pieces we're conceding, they're actually going nowhere near the centre halves. And that's why we keep conceding. It's like teams have worked us out. And that's one of the big things that I think for this Leicester game. I think Leicester completely worked us out all game. They knew exactly what we were going to do. They knew exactly how we were going to press, how we were going to try and close them down, and they exploited it. I mean, for this one, the cross goes in. It's pretty much at the penalty spot. And Derby's best headers of the ball are all, coming away from that 6-yard box. And it's same with the Matt Target one. They've put it over all our big players and put it to the back post where, Matt Target's got pretty much a free run on goal. And I think teams are starting to look at and go, okay, this is where they put their good attackers of the ball. Let's just put it nowhere near them. And they've got the quality to pick them out. And Leicester and Middlesbrough have both got, players that have a wand of a left or a right foot that can put it in those areas. So, yeah.
I think, Jake, on that as well is that, just to add to that is, we've talked about missing Carlton Morris at the top end of the pitch. I don't know whether you noticed, but it doesn't half make a difference in terms of his organisation at the other end. And maybe we're just lacking a bit of leadership in there, because when Morris comes back for these corners, he's absolutely giving everyone a rollick and he's telling them where to stand. So we're probably maybe we're missing a little bit of that in there as well, in terms of that organisation, that leadership, because no one yesterday really seemed to take charge or take the scruff of the neck, especially when we were 1 down, 2 down, 3 down, the heads were down, and, we lacked that sort of, come on lads, let's pull ourselves together, with a few expletives added in.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I really do agree. And I think, we've lost that leadership aspect, haven't we? I don't think we've maybe lost as much as possible. We could have lost a lot more going forwards. Salverson, I think, is quite a good deputy. And I think he's going to score goals for Derby. But that leadership aspect, we've lost probably our biggest leader on the pitch. And that makes a huge difference, doesn't it? It makes a really big difference. But touching further on, the fact they worked us out, I don't know if you noticed at the start of the game, Nick, Derby was shaping up as more of a back 4 than a back 5. Joe Ward was sort of pushing a little bit further forward, and Sondra Langus was playing very wide. And when we were off the ball, it was more of a 4-4-2 than that 3-4-3 that we've been playing. And I know we do tend to swap things around like that, but it seemed like a very obvious tactical choice that Eustace has made to go, okay, they've got a bit of pace down the line. Joe Ward struggles a little bit defensively. Let's put Sondra out there and he'll deal with him a lot better, which he did. He definitely did at times. But they then used that to carve us open. Every time Sanderson stepped forward to try and win a ball, they played it round him. They were dropping into spaces where we had no players, etc. Do you just think we were maybe out-tacticked on the day?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you said, they worked us out. They worked where the weaknesses in our squad are, and they've done what a good management, good scouting team should do. It's ironic, isn't it, that we've had a lot of success in our run of putting balls to the back post for Ajiman to come in and to whack either headers back across goal, or he scored a couple with his head. And you are right that they were bypassing those areas. It was weird because the Sky Sports News app changed us to a 4-4-2 sort of 10 minutes into the game, they said. And I couldn't quite work it out from my vantage point as to what it was, because you'd got Langas pulls wide anyway and is a kind of overlapping centre-back. But it was just all round a very poor first half at both ends of the pitch. I think Chris is right that we miss Morris and his leadership and his organisation. I think we also miss, the fact that when the ball goes up to him, it stays with him. And it gives the team a little bit of time to recuperate, reorganise, reshape. It wasn't quite happening for Salverson, and it was one of Ajiman's poorest performances. Not that he's ever a big keeper of the ball, but it's a kind of, I think we really, really miss Morris at that end of the pitch, and for that reason, more than we realised we were going to when he was out. I think when he was out, it's we've got options, we've got Ajiman, we've got Salverson, etc. But I think come February, come quickly.
Yeah, definitely. We need him back as soon as possible. And we'll have that chat about Ajiman in just a few minutes. But let's talk about that third goal now. And again, we talk about catalogue of errors. They were starting to pile up at this point. Ball played into the corner. Sondra Langus gets back, manages to get his body in the way. He slows the attacker down. It gets played back, and Ward just lets him have a free cross, doesn't put any pressure on him whatsoever. It's a lovely ball into that near post. And I've watched it back. I didn't realise this at the time, but I think Dion Sanderson thinks the keeper's going to get that ball, and he kind of steps out the way and goes to leave it. I mean, Zestrom is never getting that ball. He's never getting anywhere near it. It's miles out of his goal. Player just runs across him, flicks it past him into the back of the net again. And Chris, it's another error, isn't it? It's another mistake from Derby, or another set of mistakes where we're just not switched on. And I don't know whether it was the fact that, maybe it's because we conceded a couple of goals in quick succession, heads sort of dropped, people were switching off, but it was really poor defending again by Derby.
It was. Sorry if you heard a bit of background noise there. That was just Santa going by on a tractor, by the way. But
I wondered what that was.
Yeah, he's just gone by. I just asked him for 3 points for Wednesday and a new left back and left winger. But anyway, we'll see whether that comes true. But yeah, it was. I mean, I think we just touched on them working us out. I think one of the things I noticed that they did, and we fell into the trap. And I don't know whether you guys noticed, but they were quite content when they Leicester to get the ball and just pass it along their back line, and it kind of sucked us all in. And then suddenly, and this is what happened on the third goal, bang, quick ball through the lines, and 3 or 4 players are gone forward, and suddenly, I think it was Daycord over Reed, wasn't it? And he got the ball on about 20 yards out of his own goal, and he turned, and there was no one there. Everyone had just been sucked in. He had the freedom of the park, and so we fell into that trap. And then that ball he played was exquisite. But even then, they had work to do. But you're right, Sanderson just gets caught out wrong side. He thinks Zetterstrom's coming, and he's not, and then Zetterstrom can't get there in time, and it's 3-0. And I think at that point, I mean, our heads were just all over the shop. Am I right in saying that was that after the free kick that was disallowed?
After the disallowed goal, yeah,
it
which
was.
shouldn't have been disallowed.
Shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And so we could have been 4 down. And you look at the match stats; they had 4 shots on goal in the whole game. 4 shots, excluding that free kick. The other one was Zetterstrom made a save in the first half, and they've scored from 3 of them. If you include the free kick, they've scored from 4. So they, and they've had 32% possession. So they've out Derby. That's what we do to other teams, home or away. And you have to exclude the stats a little bit. 62% possession, I think we had, because in the second half, they were kind of like, well, you can have the ball now, guys. You can have it because we know you're not going to break us down. All we've got to do is deal with your long ball and deal with the crosses, and that's it. And so you talked earlier, guys, about, how they work Derby out from set pieces. This is what sides are doing to us now, because they know if we get the ball, we're just going to panic and we're going to hit it long. And the irony was, actually, we had 3-0 down, and we were getting ahead of ourselves and getting into the second half. But at 3-0 down, we actually started then to play a little bit more through the lines and cause them a little bit more danger. But we have to get away from this kind of just long ball, because all we do is giving these good sides back again. And I don't know about you, but it just feels to me as if this has been coming for a while. You look at our stats. I mean, Middlesbrough, we had 26% possession. The Swansea game, all right, we won, but it was in the 20s. And before that, it's 30%. I know we've been winning, but at some point, we're going to get turned over. You can't win every week. We accept that. But
again, is that the big Morris factor there, that this long ball stuff has been working when you've got Carlton up there?
Yeah,
and
totally.
It's not working with the Viking and Agyman. So
you guys do my job for me. Carry on. This is great. I don't have to come up with anything. This is brilliant. But no, you are right, and I think that one-dimensional method of playing is holding Derby back at the minute. And I think we kind of stumbled upon it, didn't we? When we changed to this system, we stumbled upon this style of play, where you had Morris sort of laying it off, and you had players like Agyemang and Brereton Diaz running in behind and causing problems, and we put balls into the box, and we've technically got 3 strikers in the box, so they're all going to be semi-decent in the air, semi-decent on the floor. You know what you're going to expect. But I think we've now reached a point where Joe Ward is our sole creator, really, isn't he? I know Bobby Clark played some nice balls through, etc., at different times, and he was, when you talk about breaking the lines, Chris, he was the one that was breaking the lines with those passes. But we're now thinking, give it Joe Ward, put the ball in the box, and hopefully we score. And it's just made us so predictable and so easy to play against. And when we're not in a situation where we can do that, we seem kind of a little bit confused about what we're doing. And I think there's just a little bit of a lack of cohesion. I don't really like it. But one of the things, Chris, and Vic, who must be reading my notes off my screen this second, has asked about playing a 3 in midfield. Now, me and my brother were talking about this as the game was on, where Leicester worked us out immediately and realised you've got two in midfield and one of them is Ebu Adams. And what does Ebu Adams like to do? Charge around like a crazy man trying to win the ball back. So Leicester just thought, okay, we'll put three in midfield and we'll just play it round him and we'll sit behind him. And you mentioned Decordova-Reid. He did that all game. And he dropped into that little pocket behind our midfield too. And they just kept picking him out. And there was absolutely nothing that Adams or Clark could do because it was a 2v3 all game. Now, Leicester, I mean, from up in the stands, I feel like a lot of the fan base worked that out probably within about 10 minutes. I'm very surprised we didn't make that change earlier, Chris. I mean, I know we obviously stayed with the two in the end. I'm very surprised he didn't think about, okay, we need someone to drop in now. These guys are getting murdered in the centre.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, that's the one weakness of this system, isn't it? In fact, there's two weaknesses of this system, and Leicester caught us out in both of them. And the other weakness, which you touched on earlier, is you end up 3v3 at the back, and we did. I mean, Langas had his hands full with Mabadidi. Clark was 1v1 v Fatwu, and then who did they have up front? It was
Jordan
Ayew. Yeah, who was on Sanderson. But the other big problem is, of course, is you've got 2v3 in the midfield, but I think Nick touched on it earlier on. I mean, this is the system that Eustace kind of stumbled on. He came in wanting to play more attacking football, realised he couldn't. We go back 5 and we scrape out of out to the relegation zone. We start the season and Eustace made it quite clear he was wanting to play 4-2-3-1, get that extra body in midfield, be more attacking. And we sort of scrapped it reasonably earlier on when the results weren't going our way. We go back 5, we stop conceding the goals, and then we start grinding out the results. So we win 6 out of 6, fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I guess you can understand why he didn't want to change it straight away. I mean, that's his system, isn't it? You change it within 20 minutes. But at 3-0 down, I mean, the problem is, and I'm sure we'll get onto this shortly. The problem is that I was sat there. And I said to my daughter, who comes with me, and I said, I'm not sure how we're going to change this. We would have all picked that starting 11. Regardless of what we think about some of the players in it, we would have all picked it because we don't have a choice. And then you get there and you're 3 down. You go, well, who can we bring on? The squad is decimated with injuries, and we know it's wafer thin. 1 to 11, we've got a very, very good side, I think, on paper. And we've proved that earlier in the season. But you talk about spines of teams, and it's a bit of a cliche, but you look at the start, you look at your goalkeeper, your centre halves, your centre midfielder, and your centre forward. We're missing our best midfielder in Ozo, and we're missing our centre forward, as we said, in Morris. And you look at that, you've got nothing else to come on in that midfield. We're bringing on Thompson. Okay, fine, I get it. We're bringing on Blackett-Taylor, who's hardly kicked a ball for us in 2 years. You're bringing on Jackson. I mean, let's not talk about him. We've done that before. There's nothing to come on. And that's the problem. So you could have changed the system earlier, but with the personnel, would it have made any difference? And as I said earlier, 3-0, they're in the armchair. They're sitting back and going, go Derby, break us down. And it's I'm not sure it's about systems. It's more about the inability perhaps to change our style of play. And I think that comes down to coaching and how you want to play it. So that's the concern I'd have. And maybe I'm sure we'll be fine. We'll be fine this season. But you're right. Can we change it when we're really struggling? That seems to be the big question.
Well, that's it. And with the injury crisis, you mentioned some of the players involved there. I mean, looking at the starting 11, obviously, Ebu Adams, who at the start of the season wasn't in favour. You got Joe Ward, who I know he got the assist, but also probably played quite a key role in all 3 goals we conceded as well. Callum Elder, who's looked good this season, but again, is part of the League One crew. Tomo, who I thought came on and actually did all right when he came on. I thought he played pretty well. But again, when you look at the quality of players we were up against, the level differences there. Blackett-Taylor, who we will talk about and enjoy it. Caden Jackson, who's 41 games now without a goal or an assist. Obviously, Curtis Nelson, who's been out for a year, and we haven't really seen too much of him in the Championship. And then you look at the other players on the bench. You've got the likes of, Ryan Nyambi as well, who, is very League One. And I think that's the problem at the minute. You've got a lot of the League Oneers back in the squad, and we're relying on the League Oneers, and we can't, that Leicester team, yes, it's not all about money. Yes, they've not had the best, start to the season, but they're in a false position with the squad they've got, right? You look at the quality of players that they've got there. I mean, Jordan Ayew, I'm pretty sure, has won AFCON as the starting striker, not too long ago. Decordova Reid's had a great career in the Premier League and in the Championship. Every single one of those players has cost probably 10 million plus, or the majority of them have cost 10 million plus. They are a good side of good players. And bringing on players like Blackett Taylor, who had half a good season at Charlton, and Caden Jackson, who, has struggled in a Derby shirt, we can't contend with that sometimes. And that is part of the problem. And I think until we get players back, we are going to be in that situation where, as you say, Chris, we all pick that first 11. But if that first 11 isn't delivering, we've probably only really got Vyman, who is the only one that I think would come on and really... Yeah, but he's the only one that I think would come on and make a genuine difference to the side. And I actually thought he played well when he came on. I thought he did some good stuff as well. Chris, just say it out loud, mate. You don't need to type it out to me. He says he blames Santa on his tractor. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go let the left back in a minute. That he's given us. He's wrapped him up.
I hope he's all right. I hope he left a breathing hole in there. Otherwise,
it's not a win back.
No. Oh god, another poor transfer window. But Nick, Derby did actually find a goal, didn't they? In the end, we did find a goal. Really nice ball into the box by Ward. Cracking header by Langus. It is a good goal. It brought a bit of hope to the ground. We actually sang for a bit, which was nice. But again, after that, we just couldn't break them down, could we?
No, and that was it. It was a little bit of a sort of false dawn because we were all expecting, sort of the big rousing comeback, and we had lots of the ball and we played nicer football. But again, a lot of it was in front of Leicester. They were happy for us to do it. Completely agree with your point. I thought Tomo was cracking when he came on, as far as Tomo can be cracking, with all the respect and the love to him, because he for me can stay at Derby for as long as he wants in a bit part role, or what you're going to get from him. But it never really looked like we were going to go and get that second and then get the grandstand finish that we were all hoping for. So it was, it was a Joe Ward, again, ole for the goal. And that's what he does. And I would start him on the right-hand side of a midfield or front three if you were going to go to a back four and a midfield three in the next game, purely for the delivery. And because we've got no options. We've gone to this system because we have no wide options, haven't we?
Oh.
Let's face it. That's why we've gone to this system, because we have no wingers. So against Millwall, I'd maybe go to a back four. Don't know if Johnson's going to be fit. If not, chuck Nyambe in there. But I'd push Ward on one and still have him on the pitch purely for the delivery and hope we can nick a goal that way. Because until we get some of these players back, we've got to, you've got to play the hand that you dealt. I think we've got a very good Championship 20 when everyone's fit. But we don't have a very good Championship 20 when we get 4, 5, 6 injuries.
You keep pressing circle and X, Nick, and fake shotting me. I keep thinking it's time. I'm ready to go again. But no, you are right. I think our overall squad is good enough to at least compete for mid-table in the Championship. And at the minute, we're just in a position where we've just not got the players available. We're not even touched on the fact that Salverson came off at half time as well, which I was really surprised about. Actually, I don't think he had. I mean, there were a lot of poor performances in that first half. I don't think he was the poorest, let's put it that way.
Hopefully a bit of an injury.
Hopefully.
No, I don't mean that he's got an injury, but I mean hopefully that was an injury and not a tactical decision, because if it was tactical, it's very worrying.
Well, it was a bit weird, wasn't it, Chris? And I thought Andy Byman actually came on and spent he played holding midfield for most of the time he was on, trying to thread the play because we just weren't passing the ball to each other.
Yeah.
But we put Adjamang up front as the 9, and we were talking about this quite a lot before we started recording today. And I like Adjamang. I genuinely think he's got something. And what he showed against Middlesbrough was exactly what he's about. Because if you pick up the ball in sort of that mid to final third area and you play a ball through for him to run onto, he will run through and he will score, because that is his entire game. You know, that his whole game is based around that. He's big, he's strong. You're not going to brush him off shoulder to shoulder when he's running through on goal. You know, that's not going to happen. However, if you're pumping long balls from your centre halves up to the, you know, the forward players, when the defender's got time to, you know, jog back and win the headers, I don't think he's the man, Chris. I don't think that's a role that he can play. And if Derby keep playing the way they're playing, trying to play this, as Nick said earlier, you know, trying to play like Carlton Morris is there with Patrick Adjumag up front, he's surely not going to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, what do I know? But he looks like a player that's better with when he's facing the goal than when he's got his back to it. You know, he has his back 100%. To the goal, and at the moment, there's a couple of times. There's a time in the first half where he nearly scored and his first touch let him down. And there was that moment in the second half. Do you remember? Where
I unfortunately do.
Yes, you do remember. I think we all remember. I can't remember who crossed it in, whether it was Ward or it probably was Ward, because he crosses everything in from that right hand side. And the ball came to him and he went to control it and it goes in the other direction. I mean, fine, it happens. You know, you should see my first touch. But, you know, the point is that, you know, I'm just not sure at the moment whether his first touch is sharp enough to play with his back to goal. We look at Morris. I mean, Morris's first touch is exceptional. It really surprised me, actually, how good it is. You know, so, yeah, I think playing on that kind of, you know, left-hand side of forward role, you know, the sort of place where you'd see maybe Gakpo playing for Liverpool or, you know, Rashford plays for Barcelona, whatever, that sort of space where you could get inside. Seems to be his spot. But yeah, just go back to Weimann. Yeah, Weimann came on and he sort of dropped into the number 10 role, didn't he? And I thought he did all right there. And you know, that was a little bit of food for thought, because then you're right, he was dropping in, picking the ball up, linking the play. It's just frustrating why we didn't start, you know, playing that sort of football at tempo. Because watching the highlights back, we actually had quite a lot of chances. But yeah, coming back to Adjumag, I think he's one of these players, I think, that's going to need to build up a bit of confidence as well. I mean, you know, he's a new country, he's away from home, you know, he's got no experience of playing in this, you know, this championship, which is all muscle and testosterone and, you know, having your backside kicked by a big lump of a centre half. And it's going to take him time to adapt. I mean, you're right, there's a player in there. I mean, it looks like there has to be a player in there. You know, we can't spend £5-6 million on a player and then we just bench him, you know. But I think the sooner he gets his wingman back, you know, in Morris, I think the better. And then we'll start to see the best out of him, because Morris there just occupies defenders. And then that gives him the space, you know, to run into. With Salverson there at the moment, that partnership's not quite gelled. But I'm not sure why Salverson was hooked. Maybe it was an injury, but, you know, it certainly can't be because of lack of, you know, because of what he did on the pitch, because he didn't have the ball. He got no service.
Yeah, that's it. And yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you mentioned he dropped into that number 10 role. And maybe when we're talking about, do we play midfield 2, midfield 3, maybe we do change it next game and go with Weimann as that number 10 with the likes of Adjumag and hopefully Salverson and not the other bloke in front of him. Because, yeah, I felt sorry for Diaz. You know, I'm going to say it. I felt sorry for Diaz when he got cheered off. I don't know if the cheering was just the fact that he was coming off or the greatest winger of all time, Blackett Taylor, was coming on, but you know, it felt a bit bad. He has been poor, but others have been poor too. So I don't know whether he necessarily deserves to be treated that way. And you just know that if his loan gets terminated and he goes to another championship club, he'll score 4 or 5 against us and celebrate every single one, and you know, jump into the Derby end and start scrapping someone in the South Stand or something when he scores the winner. So yeah, let's at least try and back him a little bit. As I know he's not been good, but still, yeah, it did feel a little bit harsh. But Nick, I guess pretty much our last question is to do with Ibu Adams. I thought he was rubbish, if I'm being completely honest. I thought he had a really poor game. He was all over the place. It probably didn't help that they were being overrun in that middle, but I thought Bobby Clark shone in a Derby shirt. He was probably our best player on the day, whereas Ibu Adams looked very, very lost. The amount of times the Leicester player picked his pocket from behind, you know, he just never knew anyone was there. He was too slow on the ball. Is it starting to look like his time as Derby's main man in midfield's coming to an end?
I think potentially, yeah. You know what you're going to get with Ibu. You're going to get all heart, all action, all desire, minimal quality. It was probably his worst performance in a Derby shirt, I think. After that Blackburn game, when he came on early doors for Ozo, I was thinking, you know, look, maybe the old Ibu's back. because I keep banging on. Everyone forgets he scored 6 goals last year and was the second top scorer. You know, he chipped in with some important goals. But yes, I think this is a step too high. When we signed him, I looked at his career and there had to have been a reason that a 28, 29-year-old had only played 16 games above League Two level in his entire career. And I think we're now seeing that. But if we can get anything for him in January, or if he stays as a squad player, but that's just the dearth that we have in the centre of midfield at the moment, isn't it? And the alternative is Tomo and Clark. Is that too lightweight in terms of, I know that real football on the pitch isn't FIFA, where you've got to have a big, strong player in there because otherwise you just get overrun. But is it too lightweight? But that's the only alternative at the moment. I think Ozo's back in 2 weeks. Should be.
Is he really?
Mid-December, according to FOTMob, which is incredibly unreliable.
Hallelujah.
So I
they said that he was only out for 3 to 4 weeks when he went off. So I think it's another week to 2. But this is the point that we've been making, that when we have 20 first choice fit and available players and Ibu's on that bench and you've got him to come on as a finisher, get amongst people, etc. Great role when we're looking at starting him. I think that his confidence may have been dented this season by what's happened, what's gone on. He was the man last year, the chance before the game. He was the captain. He's now had that stripped from him for somebody that's come in new straight off the bat. He's then been dropped, been brought back in, been dropped again. Is that affecting his confidence, his performance? But we could very much be seeing the beginning of the end. But he will always go down as, that man that we all wanted after the loan spell, the man that helped get us back up here and the man that helped keep us in the Championship. So, I will only ever remember Ibu Adams fondly if this is the start of the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well put. He's certainly played a good role at Derby. And if he can keep coming off the bench and doing that chaos role towards the end of the game,
that's his role, isn't it?
He hunts people down. That's perfect. But yeah, I think against teams like Leicester, I think that quality, it's just hard to make that, like you said, he's not got masses of experience against teams like that. And I think for some of our players, it was maybe just a bit of a step too far. And yeah, we're not even going to talk about Blackett-Taylor, but yeah, I don't.
Can someone check on David Clarkson, by the way? I think he might be having a stroke.
I hope he's okay. But yeah, let's look at Derby's fixtures over the next week. So obviously we've got Millwall on Wednesday. I actually completely forgot that game was on. I didn't even know we had a game until Saturday when I was asked, what are you doing on Wednesday? I was like, probably go football training, to be honest. And then turns out we actually have a game. So yeah, we've got Millwall at home and then Sheff Wednesday on the Monday. So our upload schedule is going to be completely bizarre next week. Who knows when we'll do the next episode? But Chris, it's going to be a tough run of games. I feel like that Sheff Wednesday game is the ultimate Banaskin. Millwall, obviously, third in the league. They're having a really, really good season at the moment. And it's just, I know the league's tight, but that you don't get up to third unless you're pretty good. So
yeah,
how do you see it going? And give us some score predictions and goal scorers as well, please.
Yeah, they're not the sort of team you want to play after throwing one in against Leicester. And I don't know the exact figures. I think our home record against Millwall's pretty dire. I can't seem to remember us having beaten them at home for quite a while. I mean, they certainly turned us over 1-0 last year. Do you remember that one where Letchram saved a penalty in the last minute and then they scored in injury time? That was only one or two times I thought we were going down last season. That and the Luton game, it was horrible. Anyway, I think we'd be doing well to get a point. I mean, I know it's only Millwall, but I mean they are going well. They've beaten Southampton. They just beat Bristol City at the weekend as well. I think that was away. So they clearly got something about them. So I'd take a 1-1 against them. And Sheffield Wednesday, I mean, apparently we're taking 3,900 fans up the road for that. So it's going to be quite a, I'm not going due to work commitments, but it's going to be quite a night out. You've got to be winning that one. I mean, goodness me, we've got to be getting some points out of that. I mean, maybe if we have Ozo and maybe a couple of others, maybe Johnston back, strengthens the squad. You've got to be going for a win in that one. So I'm going to be going 2-1 maybe, Sheffield Wednesday.
I like it. Nick, score prediction, goal scorers?
Millwall, I think it's going to be a very tough one. They are a big physical side, and we have been struggling physically at the moment. I think that's going to be a 2-1 loss with another set-piece goal for us. Matt Clark's probably about time that he scored. Sheff Wednesday, let's put the positive head on, because they are not... they are a very, very bare-bones team. Very, very bare bones. I think we can go there and put an away performance on them and do a 1-0. And I'd love to get, Ajiman or Brereton Diaz. I'm going to go for a Brereton Diaz worldie because he's due one. Let's try and get off his back. I think a lot of it is frustration that he just continually gets picked every week when he's not putting in the maybe the performances and the levels that we all know and see that he's capable of. 2-1 loss to Millwall, 1-0 win against Wednesday.
Nice one. Yeah, I think Millwall's going to be really tough. I think Derby are really going to want to come back from 3 defeats in 4 games. I think we'll draw with Millwall. I think it'll be another one of those where we're 2 teams trying to do the same thing, and hopefully we even each other out and get a 1-1 draw. And I agree, with a 1-0 away at Sheff Wednesday. I think it's going to be difficult with the weird Monday night circumstance. But, it'll be a good night under the lights against, like you say, a bare bones team. And hopefully we can get a result and get back to winning ways. But I think we're starting to see we are quite a mid-table side, and I think results are gonna keep echoing that. So thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like, please do subscribe. If you haven't given us a rating yet, please do rate us 5-star on Spotify, Apple Pods, whatever you listen on. We really do appreciate it, and it makes a huge difference to us as well. Like, we see lots of differences in how many people listen, how many new people discover the pod, etc., when we get ratings and stuff like that. So we really genuinely do appreciate it. So yeah, it's been good to have you here. It'd be nice to talk about a win soon. That would be great, actually. I missed the last one, so it'd be good if we could win in the next couple of weeks. So it is goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Keep the faith, keep a level head. Goodbye from me.
Great stuff. Let's get back to winning ways. We'll see you probably like next Tuesday or something because of the weird game schedule. We'll see what happens. We'll see you soon. Have a good week and a bit.